We're now going to learn Daf Chesam at Aleph. Reish Lakish Amar on the bottom of Zion Basin. Isa Almid Talmid Shalimudo Koshalav Kibarzel. If you come across a student and he's having tremendous challenges, tremendous difficulties in his learning, it's as hard as a piece of metal. You should know that the reason for this is Bishvil Mishnaso Che'enos Dura Olav. He cannot organize the Mishnah. He says, Eino Baki Karoi B'Yedias Hadinim Ashtuyim B'Mishnah. Notice, before you can get to Gemara, you have to organize the Mishnah. And im Eina Mishnayos Nesudaros Karoi, then Ol Hu Lishkach Dinim Misuyamim. They'll begin to forget certain dinim if the Mishnayos are not organized. This is a big plug for learning Mishnayos. Shenemar, Pasuk in Koheles, Vehu Lo Panim Kilkel. And one does not understand his studies because he has distorted Hu Lo. You know, it's the reason why he doesn't understand the reasoning, the logic of the Mishnah that underlies the Mishnah is because Panim Kilkel, which means Kilkel Esa Mishnah. You didn't learn the Mishnah properly. Shehi Kodemes Lavanas Tamea Vishuva, right? All of the Gemara is to try to understand the logic that underlies the Mishnah and to reconcile various contradictions in the Mishnah. My Takante. So what's the remedy for such a thing? What can he do to make his learning more fruitful and less difficult? Yarbe b'yeshiva. He says, Yarbe lilmod im talmidim bnei yeshiva. Spend more time studying in the yeshiva. I guess it means doing chazara. Kedei sheyasdiru lo es mishnasam b'tias dura biyadam. So that the Talmidim will organize the material that they study in the Mishnah, and it will be misuda. It will be arranged in the proper way. Shenemar, again, that same pasuk that we quoted earlier, is Vachayolim Yigaber. Yarbe Lulmod im Chayolos Shel Talmidim B'nei Yeshiva. Okay. So the students in the yeshiva are called chayalos. They're brigades. So yeshiva means ribui talmidim. And if you look in the Mishnah in Avos, it says marba yeshiva, marba chachma, which means ribui limud in talmidei chachamim b'yeshiva, marba chachma. Like we say, Talmida Yosef Mikulam. The end of the pasuk says, "V'Yisron Hechsher Chachma." So not only should he be fortified by the legions of students, but the advantage of wisdom is greater. In other words, Yeshna Toelis Bekakshi Yisajulo B'nei Yeshivas Mishnasam Shelo Yikshe Olav Limudo. Is Kolshkein V'Yisron Shelo Yikshe Olav Limudo Im Mishnasos Duralo Meikara. If from the beginning of his study of the Mishnah he would organize, that's called Hechsher Achman, arrange the Mishnayos in a logical way, he would review his Mishnah 40 times. And by doing so, he organized his understanding of the Mishnah. He had a deeper grasp of the Mishnah. And what is the significance of the number 40? What does it correspond to? Arboim Yom Shenitnu Torah. That Moshe Rabbeinu goes up to the Torah Har Sinai, and he studies Torah Mipi Agvura for 40 days. The Ayel Lekami Rabbi Yochanan, after and only after he reviewed his Mishnayos 40 times, then he would enter into Rabbi Yochanan, and here he says, Kadeshi Yefarish Lo Es HaMishnayos, which, if I understand correctly, Reish Lakish had it organized, but he didn't understand, some of the underlying logic, and so that's what Rabbi Yochanan taught him. We find a similar thing with Rav Adabar Ava Mesadar Masnis and Esrim V'Arba Zimnan. He also would organize his learning and review it and go over the Mishnah 24 times, not 40 times. Keneged Arbaim Yom Shenit Netar, but 24 times. Keneged Torah Nevi'im Ksuvim. There are 29 books in the Holy Writ in Tanakh. The Ayla Kami de Rava, and then and only then he would appear before Rava. Kadeshi Yefarish Lo Esham Esam Mishnayos. He quotes here the Marsha. Reish Lakish Nog Moshe Rabbeinu Shahaya Misader Umishanein Esa Torah B'Meshach Arbaim Yom. Bohem Hoyal Ahar Minastama Yemisader Lefochas Pamachas B'Yom. He would organize his learning at least once a day, times 40 is 40 times. The kach, and as a result, Ola Shahaya Misaders Mishnas Arbaim Pa'am. Ulam, he says, we're not clear as to why the minig of Rabbi Ada was to review his Mishnayos only 24 times. Keneged the Sfarim and Tanakh. So that was the Marsha's question. Ube'iyun Yaakov, because of Sheish Remez Lekach Beposu, in Tehillim Ayin Dayet says, Al Yoshuv Dach Nichlam. Dach is Begematria 24. Klomar Misha Yachzor Al Mishnaso B'Meshach Chaf Daled Piyomim Keminyan Dach Lo Yoshuv Nichlam Bebeis HaMedrash. You won't sort of walk out of the Beis HaMedrash humiliated.
Right.
Rava Omar Imra Isa Talmud Shalimudo Koshel of Kibarzel. Again, in case of a student who's having such trouble in his learning, you should know that it's Bishvil Rabo Sheinu Masbir upon it. His Rebbe is not giving him, a nice smiley face. Let's see how he translates a cheerful countenance. And Nemar, again, the same pasuk that we saw before, V'hu upon him kilkel. How is he darshaning the pasuk? V'hu lo means the reason why the Talmud does not understand the reasoning of the Mishnah, the underlying logic of the Mishnah, is because panim kilkel, his Rebbe gave him a sour countenance. Limudo behezber. Limudo knows he taught him besever panim ros. This is the big challenge of a successful Eder for young children. I see it here in Yerushalayim. When the Rebbe has panim yafos, and the children are very, very successful. My son's children go to a cheder. It's unbelievable. I've seen it over and over again, how cheerful the Rebbe is.
Right.
My takante, what should this Talmud do that he just finds his learning so difficult? Yarbe Olav Reim. He should send Reim Rabim Lerabo Leratzosa, numerous friends to intercede on his behalf to his teacher. Kidei sheyachdol mikaso, that somehow the Rebbe will stop getting angry. For Yerlo Panim will show a more positive, happy countenance. And Nemar, again at the end of the pasuk, which we saw already before, B'chayolim Yigabe, and the legions will be successful. Klomer Yarbel L'shloach Chelo Shel Reim L'Rabba. And the pasuk ends with the Yisron Hechsher Chacham. But the advantage of wisdom is greater, meaning there's a great advantage here by being Maratza, the Rebbe, that he should no longer have difficulty in his studies. Kolchken, the sorrow means even more so. If he was behaving properly from the very beginning, and he pleased his Rebbe, that's called Hachsher Chacham. The Rabbi Ambi, my dichsiv. What does the pasuk mean in Koheles when it says im yishoch hanochash, if the snake bites, below lachash, and it wasn't charmed, the ein yisram lebal halosh, and the master of speech has no advantage. Imra isa darsh shamayim mishatchin. If you see a generation in which the sky is mishatchin, he says in the Hebrew machlidin, miloshan chaluda. Chaluda means rust. Omar nidvim heim kimo kli barza. They look like a rusty vessel that's made out of iron. Shlosh tamshu bozman ra, and it hasn't been used for a long time until it got rusty, and its color is red kinechoshes, like the nachash. In the English translation, he calls it copper, but in the Hebrew, he calls it seva adom. I guess copper has a reddish color to it, like the American pennies. Anyway, and all this is milahorid tal umata, that the color of the sky has turned copper and it's no longer producing rain and dew. And why is that so? Bishvil lochashe lechishos. These are the praying generation that's praying. Mispale tfilos. She'ein badar. Notice the generation is bereft of those who speak in that soft tone, which is called lachish, lachash, or lachash, of tefillah. My takanosam, who's going to teach them how to pray? Yelchu etzel mishi yodea lilchosh. They should go to someone who knows how to speak softly, meaning pray, and he'll teach them how to pray the tsiv, as the pasuk says in Eov, amongst the various psukim that deal with the rains that are withheld. Yagid olav reo, his colleague should speak, which means pray, on his behalf. He says yispalel olav chavero. I'm not exactly sure. Before we were saying that he's going to go to someone who's going to teach him how to pray. That's what I thought. But now it says Yagid Olav Reo, which means that he's going to pray on his behalf. Lefi Pshuto, he writes, Mashmos HaPosiki, She'al HaChacham Shureo V'ovo Shel Dor Likro, to call out to the people, Lahagid Lehem Lefashvesh B'Maseyem, and to inspire them to investigate and evaluate their own actions for Loshavel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to do tshuva. U'pa'ula zu hi hakinyan shal yodo niknim shamayim v'shamayim el yonim klomar yidei kach yizku l'kabolas gishamim. The rains will come down. So there seems to be a double connotation here. Number one, that this person that he's going to is a Yodea Lilchoch. He'll inspire you to do tshuva. And the other interpretation seems to be that he'll teach you how to pray, and he'll even pray on your behalf. And the Gemara now continues to interpret the end of the pasuk in Koheles regarding Yeshamim. V'ein Yisron lebala loshen. The master of speech has no advantage. Umisha efshalo lichchosh. A person who knows how to daven, how to pray in the proper way. Eino lochej. If he doesn't pray, then ma hana yeshla. What benefit does he derive from not praying? But v'im lochash v'lo nene, if the master of the speech did pray, but there was no response from Hashem, what should he do? What's the remedy for that? It's not enough that he went to the Odel Lilchosh. That apparently didn't succeed, but rather he should go to the most pious person in the generation, the Yarba Olav B'Tfilah. And again, I think he means that the pious person will be mispalil. He writes here, Mishonim Imisha Yodel Lilchosh Olav Elov Holchu Tchila. They went to him first. Beino Mashkias Daito B'Tfilah Tamid Elrak Yodea Lispal HaChasid Shebedar Heino Kazeh Rogil Lispal Tamid. So the most pious person in the generation is constantly dedicating himself to pray on behalf of the people. Shenemar, as it says in Eov, Vayitzav Olav B'Mafgia. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to bring about and command the rains to come down when there'll be a mafgia, p'kiyasim, which means tfilosin shal Yisrael. The ein p'giyal tefillah shenemar, as we saw earlier, v'atal tispal b'yad ha'am hazeh v'al tisa b'adam rina u'tefillah v'al tifka bi. We see that the word p'giyah means tefillah. Once again, if this works well and the rains come down, in Lachash, be also biyado, and God was accepted and hearkened to the prayers. But as a result, umegis gaito dato olav, it gets to his head. He starts boasting. Wow, my tefillos were accepted on high. That's not a good thing? Maybe he brings anger. Li olam. God gets angry at the world. Shenemar Yagid Olavreo Mikne Af Al Olam. Makne is a lashon shegorim lo sheyikne v'yovo charon af. Makne af. So the word makne means gorim, to cause. Af is anger. And the anger is going to be brought about on the megas daito. So here on the one hand, he was successful in his prayers, but yet he let it go to his head. And as a result, he precipitated divine wrath. Two scholars that sit in the same city, v'ein nochin ze lo ze ba'aloch. They don't converse in divrei halacha. They don't share their ideas, their insights, as they should do. And miskanim be'af Hashem. Therefore, they arouse the divine anger. Let me just see how he translates it. He says,
I think anger, no?
Yeah, but how do you translate the word miskanim? In the Hebrew, he calls it misgarin, which I think means it causes. I just want to see.
Provoke, yeah, I think it says provoke.
To provoke. Okay, good. Very good. Excellent. Provoke. Umalim umevim oso aleim. And it brings this anger upon them. Shenemar mikne af al ole. Mikne af al ole. 1 second. Having trouble finding this here. Where is it, on the right column? Or on the left column?
Left.
On the left column.
I think
I'm looking in the wrong column.
Provokes anger, which goes up and rises.
Oh, the reason why I didn't find this because I'm on the wrong page. He says, there are 2 Torah scholars residing in one city, and they're not agreeable to one another in matters of halacha. Okay, we didn't say it exactly that way. Here in the Hebrew, it says, Eino mitabrim, to divrei halacha zem zeh. It's like there's a wall between them. They don't communicate.
Right.
Then he says, miskanim, just 1 second, they provoke bi'af, divine anger, umalim oso, bring it upon themselves. As it is said, he provokes anger which goes up and rises. According to this drasha, the entire pasuk is meant to mean when one colleague should talk to the other, and if he doesn't do so, he provokes anger which goes up and rises. Now, provokes is not a literal translation of mikne. Yeah, that's where I got thrown for a loop here. But mikne, which means acquisition, and mekane, I guess when you convert it from a noun into an active verb, it becomes provoke. To provoke.
Mm-hmm.
Lakish, what does the pasuk mean that we quoted earlier? Im yishoch hanachash, if the snake bites, below lachash, and it wasn't charmed, the ein yisron lebala loshon, then the master of speech has no advantage. What does this mean? Liasid lavo, in the future, at the end of days, miskabtzos ubos kalachayos eitzal hanochash v'yomerlo. The animals gather together and they say to the nachash, Ari dores v'ochel. A lion pounces upon its prey and eats its flesh immediately in that place. Ze'ev, and a wolf, even though it doesn't eat up its treifa, meaning of the animal immediately, mikomakom toref, it tears apart its prey, molich oso lemokom achburo, v'yochel, and he takes it into his hiding place, and there he eats it. So we understand that they pounce and prey and kill their prey, and they have a benefit for achila. But you, who will bite people and kill them, you don't use their bodies for eating. You get no benefit from it, and you don't eat anything. So why do you kill people? The Nachash responds, what hana does a person get when he speaks lashon hara? When he is a maligner and he maligns other people, does he get any hana, any benefit from it? And I am like that person. I don't derive any benefit from harmful talk, and I don't get any benefit from biting and killing a human being. And on the day of judgment, God will bring the speakers of lashon hara to the snake to shame the snake for its sin of enticing Chava, and through her also Adam, to eat of the forbidden fruit. And the speakers of Lashon Hara will be humiliated together with the snake. Amar Rabbi Ami, Ein Tfiloso shel Adam nishmas elam kein mesim nafsho bechapa. His prayers will not be accepted on high unless he puts his heart into his hands. Mashves libo lekapos yada. And therefore it means his prayers are sincere. He's mispal bekavanas halev. Shenemar, Chosgen Echa Per Gimel, Nisa Levavenu El Kapayim. Will let us lift up our hearts with our hands to heaven. Aini, the Gemara says, is this really true that God does not accept tefillah without kavana? For Okim Shmuel Amora Ale. Shmuel set up a Meturgamon, Litzido, so that the Meturgamon would project the content of his speech to the Tzibur B'Darash, and he interpreted a pasuk in Tehillim. And the pasuk said the following: "Vayifatuhu b'fiem." That means chashvu lefatos uleramos es HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'tefillah. They tried to eat kaviyachol to fool God with their tefillah. The libam lo nochan imo, and their hearts were not with their tongues. V'lo nemnu bibrisa, which means that their tefillos were without kavanah, bereft of any sincere intent. V'afal picha, nevertheless, in the next pasuk it says, "V'urachum yichaper avon v'lo yishchis," etc., etc. In other words, God accepts the tefillah and He doesn't punish them. So you see that even a tefillah without, bereft of kavanah, of intention, is miskabelas, is accepted on high. And this contradicts the premise of Rabbi Ami. And the Gemara answers, Lo kasha, the pasuk in Eov of Nisa Levenu al Kapayim, from which Rabbi Ami derived the conclusion that tefillah without kavanah is not accepted, is biyachid, is when the individual is praying. But Kan, the psukim in Tehillim, from which Shmuel derived the conclusion that even tefillah without kavanas halev is accepted on high, is bitzibur. That's a tefillah of the entire congregation. Rabim mispalim yachad. And that's what it means by fatu befihem, loshen rabin, befihem. In the plural, tefillosim miskabelas, afal pi, she'enam mechavnim bitfilosam. Amar Rabbi Ami, Ein Gishamim Yardim El Bishvil Bale Amana. To bring down the rains, we need people who are trustworthy. Ne'emanim b'diburim masom matanim be'emuna. This the whole Musa movement was originally, activated, so to speak, in order to solve this problem of emuna, bali emuna. Shenemar, it says, emes may eretz titzmach. The truth will sprout from the earth. B'tzedek mishamayim nishkaf, and charity will peer from the heavens. Where there's truth on earth, like in business dealings, in masumatan ben abrios, then is me eretz tismach. There will be sprouting from the ground, and the gshamim, which are gitmei bracha, will come down, and they're called tzedek mishamayim nishkaf. Charity will peer from the heavens. How great are those people who are trustworthy. And we'll see the opposite, how God will punish someone who's not omed b'diburo. Inayin, how do we see this? Michulda ubar, from the story of a weasel and a bar. And what was the story? There was a young man who promised a young woman that he would marry her. And the Nara asked, Mi meid al haftachasach kaimena, who is going to testify that you will fulfill this promise? Amalei, he said, bar uchulda. Animtsoim liyadenu yu shneim eidim b'dover. Apparently there was a weasel in a pit right near them. And after a certain period of time, this young man violated his promise. He married a different woman, and they had two sons. One of them fell into the bar and died, and the other was bitten by the chulda and died. Why did they die in such a terrible way? And apparently he revealed this Masechet. I'm not sure what the word golel means. Just 1 second. In any event, we see clearly from this story how severe is the punishment for someone who's not neman b'diburo, not trustworthy, violates his promise. He writes here that she told him that he ought to marry the girl that he had promised. And so he divorced his wife, married that girl. We should derive from this story that someone who chooses a chuld and a bar as witnesses, likim after chaso, kach, this is what happens to him. And he's punished in such a way because he violated his avtocha. As a mamin b'kadosh baruch hu, if a person believes in God and chooses God to be his aid, his witness, likim after chaso lechavero, to fulfill his commitment, his promise to his friend, alachas kama v'kama, how much more so will God punish him if he's not omed b'diburo? Rabbi Yochanan, kol hamatzdik es atzmo misnaig betzidkus milamata is machshir makashet es maisov milamata, down here in this world. Is matzdikin olav hadin milamalo. Bezdin up in Shamayim in the heavenly courts will treat him in a similar way. V'digduk ra. As he's boasting about all the different details of his great action, God will look and scrutinize into all the details of his action. And he'll be punished in this world, even on a small sin. And that will achieve that he's cleaned away from his sin. It's a cathartic experience. As the pasuk says, "Ere emes me'eretz titzva v'tzedek b'shmayim nishka." That kasher ma'asim shel adam kan ba'aretz mechuvanim al pi emes, when his actions here are straight and honest, then mishamayim yinagu oso imo b'midas tzedek. Rabbi Chia bar Avin Amar Avuna mihachi derives the same conclusion from a different pasuk in Tehillim, ukir ascha evra secha. Like your fear is your judgment, your anger. Corresponding to the fear of you is your anger. Amisha yoria oscha atamoseches kascha. Because you are God-fearing, God will be very careful in scrutinizing meticulously your actions. Umotech es kascha. He says here, Kechol sha'adam yorim imcha yoser kach kascha olav kishuchote gadol yoser. So there's a corresponding anger of God. Reish Lakish Amar Mehach. Reish Lakish derives the same conclusion from a different pasuk in Yeshayahu Hanavi. Bagata esas the osei tzedek. You are smitten each one who refuses and performs righteousness. B'drachecha yizkerucha, in your ways of yours, they will recall you. Ein ato kafatzta, and behold, you become angry. Why? Vanechta bahem olam v'nivasha, because we have sinned, and through them, right? Through them, bahem olam v'nivasha. Through them, meaning the sufferings, he will be saved in the world to come. Umanish esatzadikim shesmechim v'osim tzedek. You will punish those who do tzedek. Even if pagata es sos v'osa tzedek. And those tzadikim, even be'es shatamiyaser otzcha, maskirin oscha tova. And that's the pasuk v'drachecha yitzkerucha. V'omrim heina tokafatzta katzafta v'nechta b'hem olam v'nivasha. Klomer yisurim eluhem litova lechaper al chatosenu kedei shenagia mizuchachim li'olam haba. Omer Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi kol sameach v'yisurim sheboim olav. Anyone who's makabel yisurim v'yava maybe Yeshua li'olam. He's bringing salvation to the world. Shenemar, at the end of the pasuk, which is dealing with the tzaddikim who accept upon themselves the din, it says, Bahem olam v'nivasha, v'schusam ha'olam nosha. Amrei shlokish ma'idich siv, v'yatzar es hashamayim. I will withhold the rains. V'lo yamatar. Loshan atzira is a remez, v'shosha shmaim ne'etzarim milahorid matar. When the sky restrains, holds back the dew and the rain, it's like a woman who is in labor, but she does not give birth. In other words, the sky is full of rain clouds, but they do not precipitate rain. This is a harmful situation for the world, and it comes as a result of sin. The afba nemar loshanat sira. Klomar, Shem Shalom Mekasha Leleda Ledes Nigram Tsar Gadol Bekach Kach Gambi Ace Shashamayim Miskashrim Ve'anonim V'ena Moridim Gisham V'Shalachatoim Nigram Tsar Gadol Abriel. So I know the Amrei Shlokish Michubar Kapara Nemra Atzira B'Gisham. The Torah used the word V'Yatzar Es Hashamayim with regard to Geshem, that they don't come down from the skies. When a woman does not succeed in giving birth, again we find the word atzira. And this we'll see on the top of Ches Amid Beis. Lokish says, Nemar atzira be'isha shenemar, with regard to Avimelech, who was punished, and the women of his household were punished, that they couldn't give birth. They remained barren. Ki atzar Hashem bi'ad kol rechem. Hashem restrained every womb in the base Avimelech al dvar Sarah Eish Savram. In Nemra, and it says atzira b'gitshamim tichsiv yatzaras hashmayim. So we have this comparison between God restraining a woman in labor from giving birth and God restraining the rains. And Reish Lakish adds to this comparison, to this analogy. Nemar leida be'isha. It says childbearing with regard to a woman. Nemar leida be'gshamim. Where do we see leida, like giving birth with regard to Geshem? Nemar leida be'isha d'chsiv. With regard to Rachel giving birth to Yosef, it says Vatar Vatelid Ben. So that's called Vatelid Leda. V'nemar Loshen Leda B'Gishamim Tichsiv. As it says in Yeshayahu Hanavi, Ki Kasher Yered HaGeshem. We read this on Haftorah, on a Taanit. Ki Im Hervas HaOretz Holida V'Tzmicha. and the rain makes the earth bear vegetation and bud. So again, we see the word Leda with regard to Gisham Kikasher, Yered Hashemesh Vaholida Vatzmicha, Nemar Pekida Be'isha. We find the word Pekida, which means remembering in connection with a woman. Nemar Pekida Be'gishamim, and likewise, we find the word Pekida, remembering in connection with rain. Hashem Sarah. God remembered Sarah, and then she gave birth. Nemar Pekida Gisham Dechsiv. Pasuk in Tilim, chapter Samachet. Vakadati ha'oretz vatishokikeha rabas tashrena peleg Elohim mole mayim shata Hashem chafetz lativ atapoketis ha'oretz umachkosa mi peleg, which is a brecha shalcha hamole b'mayim. You remembered the earth and you watered it. And Rabbas Tashrena, you enrich it abundantly from God's pool filled with water. So the Gemara asks, so from the fact that the Pasuk uses the same Lashon with regard to Leda and Yeridus Geshamim, we derive the conclusion that just like a person should be Mvakesh Rachamim with tefillos, supplications, that Hashem should be okay the each of a teled, and she should not suffer from atzira, from being prevented from giving birth. So too we should be mavakish rachman, that God should remember the aretz and bring down the rains, and there shouldn't be an atzira sanonim milahorid esagshomim. What does the pasuk mean when it says peleg Elohim molei mayim? God's pool will be filled with water. Tana, we learned in the Brisa, Kimin Kuba Yesh Barakia. There's like an oil, some sort of a chamber in the sky, and it's full of water. Shemimena Gishamim Yotzim, and from there the rains emerge. So we're up to now Omar Rav Shmuel Bar Nachman. Here on Daf Ches Amid Beis.